Hello and welcome to the world-famous Driving You Crazy podcast. This is the show where we talk about all things transportation, anything that gets you from here to there. I'm the traffic anchor and the transportation reporter for Denver 7 News, Jason Luber, and if you just heard a clanking sound, it was me dropping my pen. If you want to be on the show, then you can always give me a call on the listener hotline. I had a couple of calls this past week. Nothing really worth airing here on the old program, but that number is 303-832-0217, and you can call that anytime. And of course, all my contact links are in the description of this show. If you ask most people, if they were being honest, they would tell you they're not really a fan of riding on public transportation, especially on the city bus. I've had to do it. I'm not a fan, but sometimes it's all you have. There are people, though, with no other option because they can't either afford a car, they're not able to drive a car. There might even be some who, for whatever reason, say that public transportation is their only option to get around. Well, what if public transportation was a better service? Would you ride it then? Trent Griffin-Braaf, the CEO and founder of Tech Valley Shuttle, agrees with you, saying public transportation is failing. But he says he has an idea about how private options can help, and he joins me now to talk more about it. Trent, thanks for being here on the world-famous Driving You Crazy podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
All right, Trent, before we get into what you think are the problems and the solutions with public transportation, I want to talk about you for a minute, because talk about growing up in Albany, and how is Albany right now as far as getting around?
So growing up in Albany, especially being someone who moved from New York City, I at a young age, I got to experience what like a real robust transportation system looks like. And then moving to upstate New York, Albany, where all we have are public buses, it was like night and day to go from buses, taxis, and train systems just to buses and taxis. I do think, though, in the capital region here, we do have one of the best busing systems. They're really good in tune with tech. But one good thing is they also partner with private vendors, because even the CEO of that company has expressed to me he understands the future of public transportation is to partner with private transportation, because it is a need to do it effectively.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that and get more specific about that in just a minute. You didn't grow up a business leader. In fact, you had, as I was reading, a pretty rough go of it in your late teens and early 20s, right?
Agreed. Yeah, I made some terrible decisions that, cost me my freedom. So because of that, I was sentenced to a 4 to 12-year prison sentence. I served about 3.5 years in state penitentiary. The blessing in that was I was able to take some college courses while I was incarcerated, as well as it allowed me to hit my rock bottom and put me in a situation where I said I never wanted to return, and I was willing to do anything I could in the proper way now to assure that never happens again.
There are still some folks that are incarcerated and in jail and in the system, and they come out and they don't do what you did. They get back in. You jumped out of jail, and it's not like every day you see somebody like you did that steps out on the street and say, I think I'm going to start a public transportation service. I mean, how did you get that interest in starting your own shuttle service?
Yes, so it was organic, to be quite honest with you. I had, after being released, I worked my way up from cleaning toilets to eventually becoming a general manager of a hotel. It was probably a 6-year ordeal in the growth trajectory. But then at that point, I used my network. I was privy to things that were coming. And for us, we had a casino being built. This was before rideshare. So we all talked about how bad the taxi systems were for our guests. And so utilizing my network, I just asked, hey, if I started this company, would you use me? And they said, hey, you can't be too much worse than the taxi cabs, and we know you, so why not? And so that was the gateway into transportation. I formed Tech Valley Shuttle in 2016. And our whole premise was to partner with hotels at that point, to be a hotel-based transportation company. One of my mentors always used to say the riches are in the niches. And so I figured I found a little niche, and I wanted to run with it. But I would say, in wanting to be a master of my craft, Still to this day, I take 15 minutes each day to just learn about transportation. And in doing so, I started to sit on transportation committees, starting to really want to indulge myself in that space. And in 2018, I received the poverty report in the capital region. And it was the first time for me that I had the light bulb moment that said, hey, poverty and transportation, they go hand in hand in a lot of ways. And a lot of the issues with employees being able to get to work, access to employment, all come down to transportation. And so, and so from that moment on, I said, hey, maybe we could put a dent into that. And that's when we started to pivot and we really rebranded and recreated ourselves to be a community-based transportation supplier, which today our whole mission is to combat poverty through transportation solutions. And everyone talks about the problems. Well, we want to be focused on what are the solutions to the problems. And so now, we do services that aid access to employment by getting individuals to and from work every day by partnering with their employers. We do services that address food insecurities, where we partner with some organizations, nonprofits, some counties, and we actually get individuals who live in food deserts access to food, or we take them to healthy food options. We address the school to prison pipeline, in which we take youth from the inner cities, from rural areas, and we get them into schools that have higher graduation rates, like charter schools and private schools, as well as trying to reduce recidivism, as we talked about. And so 4 times a year, we do free community prison shuttles, where we bring individuals from the community to a different prison hub, and we just bring them there completely for free, because studies show with each visit someone incarcerated gets, it reduces their rate of return to prison. And so we're the majority of the services we provide to this day and at this point are all around reducing poverty in some way, shape, or form. We also help with homeless. In the winter months, there's something called Cold Blue Albany, where we partnered with Hattis in the past, and we brought homeless individuals, to warm, safe places when it's too cold to be outside. And so we're 100% community based when it comes to those things, and we're just trying to do our little part in helping to reduce poverty.
My guest is Trent Griffin-Braaf. He's the CEO and founder of Tech Valley Shuttle. We're talking about his take on public transportation. In your Yelp business profile, Trent, where you average 4-star reviews, you describe your business as a community-based transportation provider, as you said, whose mission is to combat poverty through transportation. We provide transportation solutions services to aid those living in poverty-stricken and or rural areas. Now, how you were talking a little bit about that, but specifically for those people living in poverty, are you helping them out by giving them access to transportation, or is it a also lower cost for transportation, or a mix of both?
I would say it's a mix of both, but for the majority of what we do, we tend to partner and try to make the service free for the customer. So let it be our partnerships with nonprofits who might have gone after some grant monies to be able to pay for a service. Let it be an employer or a state entity. We typically try to go with those sort of partnerships so then we can offer the service for free, or really for free, not even so much for reduced pricing, for free for the customer.
So obviously it costs you to buy gasoline. It costs you to hire drivers. It costs you somebody to maintain your vehicles. And so there has to be some money coming in. So where are you getting that money?
Well, that's when we get paid by the counties. That's when we get paid by the states. That's when we get paid by the employers. So typically, the money comes back in other ways from the nonprofit organizations, et cetera. That's typically where the majority of the funding, that is where the funding comes for these sorts of services. And then also we still do private transportation just in general. So we're still doing weddings, we're still doing sports outings, or just general outing, airport shuttles, to which case that's when our customers tend to pay for the services themselves. So it's definitely a mixture of partnerships with community-based counties, as well as nonprofits and employers, as well as the B2B as well as the C2C side, B2C side, where we go directly to our customer.
And as you mentioned just a minute ago, you do offer those services like food desert shuttles and medical shuttles, complimentary community correctional facility shuttles, and these commuter and workforce shuttles to get people to and from work as they need it. But how do you price those? You say that you want those to be as free as possible to the riders, but how do you price those for the businesses that are sending you money compared to your, as you said, wedding shuttles or the airport shuttle or the sports concert shuttles, where presumably those people obviously have money to do those entertainment events? And so how do you change how do you price the services between what the paying people go to and what they're paying versus what you charge the companies that need those workers and need those people to get around?
So when we price it out, we just use a basic pricing calculator that we've been able to create, which helps us do so. The big difference is oftentimes, if it's a recurring service, naturally we would price it accordingly, given those sort of services some reduced pricing because of the volume in the service in comparison to a one-off where it might be just a wedding, which we wouldn't then include a cheaper price point because it's not reoccurring. And so we definitely keep that front of mind. We understand that, it's all about the bottom line in business to be able to continue to stay in business. So we have to be able to turn a profit in what we're doing. But we also identify that it is possible to turn a profit and give back at the same time. And we're a great reflection of that.
Right, because I looked on your website and I did not see any prices. You have to ask for a quote for whatever your service is. I tend to like to know what the prices are, at least a ballpark figure when I'm looking at a website. So why do it that way and not do it where you can actually see a little bit of what the pricing is?
Well, it would be hard to, because let's say if you were saying, hey, I'm getting picked up in this location and I want to go to that location and it's 100 miles and the vehicle type is a 20 passenger vehicle, and the time of day is 3 a.m, that would look a lot different than our customer who's saying they only want to go 5 miles and it's one customer in a sedan size vehicle at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So we have to equate for all of those differences when coming up with our when we calculate our pricing. And so we couldn't just do a cookie cutter approach in terms of saying it's just this price point. Plus, we like to assure that we're able to give our customers the very best service possible. So we like to engage with our customers as more as possible. And one thing that from a customer service aspect, one of our core values is customer obsession. And so I always talk to the team of the importance of communication. And so we want to talk to you. We want to hear what you got going on, because honestly, we might be able to help you problem solve it a little bit better than you might be able to do yourself, because this is the industry we're in and we know what it looks like. And so oftentimes we rather have the dialogue, because we find that in doing so, the customer is like, hey, I'm so happy that you were able to help me with this. I was thinking I should do it like this, but after talking with you, that makes way more sense. And so also customer service, and it allows us to be able to engage with our customers instead of just, AI generated responses.
Right. My guest is Trent Griffin-Braaf. He's the CEO and founder of Tech Valley Shuttle. We're talking about his take on public transportation, all the services that he offers. You also say that your transportation service was established with a dream to become the best transportation option in upstate New York, setting out to achieve this by offering your clientele the most luxurious, reliable, and safe rides around town, but for the fraction of the price of our competitors. So how are you able to do that? How do you keep your prices lower than everyone else, as you are dealing, as we said earlier, dealing with high labor costs and maintenance and fuel costs, and also trying to keep a profit, and then also deal with people who typically aren't able to pay as much for a ride as others?
And I think because our mission has kind of changed over the years, even hearing that finding, I think we've evolved. And so at one point that was the goal, to have the nicest vehicles and to do this and that luxurious experience. But we realized that's actually not necessarily our role. There are other organizations out here that do that at a really good job of doing it. And so what we now try to do is be the more economic option all the way around, as well as, but most importantly, and what we lead with is the community aspect. And so we find that a lot of our customers, they actually rather do business with us because they know of all the good that we do in the community. And they know that when they book with us, their money is also being poured right back into the communities of which they come from.
Do you consider yourself public transportation or just a car and shuttle service like Super Shuttle or any other of the any of those other services in any town around the country?
That's a great question. I think I would consider us in-betweeny. I think we're because we're not necessarily public transportation, because we just don't have that authority. But what we do is we aid public transportation. We're a resource. We've partnered with our local public transportation company in the past. And so I think we're in between because we still offer general private transportation, but in a lot of ways, the things we do affect the general public when it comes to transportation here in the capital region. And so I would say we're in betweeny.
Yeah, okay. That makes total sense because you do take public money or at least money from these other companies that are helping you out, I guess, in a way. And in the pitch to me to talk to you, I was told that you believe that public transportation does need help, that it's failing. In what other ways do you think that the overall public transportation system is failing?
Well, I think it's failing because the way it was set up, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And so if we were to peel back some of the layers a little bit and go back to when I first had that aha moment, the aha moment for me was identifying poverty and transportation go hand in hand. As you start to kind of think about it, we've all heard of redlining, and the effects of redlining. Public transportation was set up to support redlining and some of those other things. And so because of the way public transportation was set up initially, it's working exactly how it's supposed to. However, as we've evolved as a community, as we evolved as a country, we now are seeing some of those practices just aren't the best practices for our country's sustained growth. And so I think it's working to a fault, but it's the fact of how it was originally set up. And so so for me, I think it's time to revision how public transportation looks. And that's why I'm a huge fan and component of public and the private sector needing to be able to work together, just like we see in many other industries across every other industry. When those two sectors do work together, a lot more gets accomplished. And then when you talk about driver shortages that are taking place in the country, when you talk about how now downtowns are being revitalized and public transport, and how and people are not necessarily just in the urban areas or in the suburban areas, like the whole makeup of the land is evolving right in front of us. And so with that being said, it's kind of silly to think that the old way of big buses going down these same routes all of the time are the wave of the future, when we've seen how Uber and Lyft has disturbed the industry and how people have become accustomed to utilizing technology, and how ridership now may not need that big bus anymore. Maybe it's time for smaller vehicles, sprinter vans and vans that are more agile and can maybe not operate on a standard bus line, but create micro transit pickup and drop off locations. So I believe in my heart that public transportation is working how it's supposed to work. The problem is it was set up in a way that is no longer efficient or in the best interest of the country overall, sustained growth.
And some of the neighborhoods that those old school system routes service have changed as well, because you have these major roads where there are just stops at several blocks apart, and that hasn't changed, even though some of the neighborhoods have changed. And like you say, maybe public transit needs to be more like what your company does, micro transit options. Instead of the large buses and the longer routes, smaller vehicles, shorter routes, more service.
I agree. And I think, or if they want to continue with the way it is, that's when you start to partner with smaller organizations like myself, who can then go and be a resource for these bus lines, that they can help create new bus lines by doing true data, capturing true data and starting transportation lines in areas that they didn't do previously, but to be able to show that no, this can be supported by this. And so I just believe that you have a lot of smaller businesses and transportation who can be a resource to the overall benefit of public transportation. And I believe in my heart, as we continue to evolve as a country, and if we're looking for sustainable change, transportation should be one of the things that are at the top of that list, because transportation is effectively people's freedom in a lot of ways. And so when you don't have transportation, it restricts what you're able to and can do. And so the more robust and the better of a transportation we could build for individuals in places like upstate New York, just like in New York City, in bigger areas, the more access that people will have. And we know access and opportunity are really the two things that most people just need.
You mentioned the different kinds of public transportation available down there in New York City. You don't have all those options up there at Albany, up in upstate New York. You're probably not going to build a subway system. You probably aren't going to build trains. So, like you said,
Right.
there are limited options to get around.
Correct. Very limited. And I mean, it's really tough for individuals who live in either really rural areas. That's what you see a lot in the capital region, in greater capital region, a lot of rural areas. And oftentimes those are the individuals who tend to have it the worst from the lack of public transportation in areas like us. And so we're always just, so I think that's one huge barrier that exists that I've seen locally. And then even in the inner cities, sometimes it's tougher because the bus schedule doesn't necessarily operate 24 hours a day, or they don't necessarily align with your particular work needs. And so for individuals who work overnight shifts, there's some restrictions as to where they could actually work if they are relying upon public transportation alone.
Who should pay for all of this? Because here in Denver, and I think it's like this in most metro areas around the country, the taxpayers cover 75 to 80% of the cost of the public transit overall, while riders are covering the rest, around 20% or so, maybe 15%. But in the last 2 months here in Denver, we've had free fares, so it's all tax money. There's a lot of public transit areas in the country that are trying to do away with any money that has to go at the fare box and make it all free for the ridership. Is that the way to pay for this? Just give the taxpayer money to these smaller companies like yours to partner in a line with, or almost in place of, what the current transportation systems are right now?
I think that's one way. I could definitely see that, but I think our model actually is working a little bit better, because in terms of not having a hopefully being able to help a little bit more money stay in the taxpayers' pockets. We're all taxpayers, and we all know the effects of paying those taxes, and oftentimes, the ask is, hey, where's my tax paying money going to?
Right.
And so I think in this instance, with how we operate, it would actually help to keep some of the taxpayers' money in the taxpayers' pockets, because our setup is we partner with organizations who pay for it. We partner with nonprofits. So the majority of the monies that we get are actually coming from the government or coming from the private sector, instead of us having to necessarily, continue to tax the taxpayer for the same sorts of things.
Do you think that the public transportation system, then, let's say the public authority there in the Albany area, or New York City, or SEPTA down there in Philadelphia, should they pick a couple of companies? Private companies, should they just open it up to, let's say we want to partner with 100 different companies like yours, and then be able to move people around? Is it something that they should partner with a few to keep it more manageable, or partner with all of them just so we can get people where they need to go?
I think they should partner with a few. I think a couple of things. Still, you want to make sure that you vet out who you're working with, because people are relying on these services, and so you want organizations that are reliable, that have a history of safety, because in these partnerships, the both parties, but more so the larger party, is putting their neck on the line. And so I think they still have to do their due diligence to ensure that they're partnering with the right partners. Also, I think that it wouldn't work if it was for every transportation partner wouldn't work necessarily. And I say that because for what we do, our ability to help the homeless, to help individuals recovering from addiction, etc. Some organizations, that's not their core customer, and it's not in alignment with what their mission is and their values are. So I just think in order for it to really work, it should be in partnership with organization that is in alignment, that is community based. And if that's not the case, this might not be the right partnership because they might not be equipped to handle the customer in the same regards. Additionally, maybe they have these super luxurious vehicles that they paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for, and maybe they don't want to have certain clientele in those vehicle base, and they have every right for that. And so I don't think this is for everybody. I don't think this is for every transportation provider, but I think for those transportation providers that are looking to be a resource for the community, this is a viable option. And I think there should be more interest in getting into this space. In terms of transportation, a lot of people have gotten into trucking, logistics, even rideshare for themselves. But this is an opportunity to provide some true impact into your own neighborhood, as well as to provide true impact for others who are lacking transportation. And so for any transportation providers that are out there listening, I think this could be a great opportunity to pivot into a different space. But in answer to your first question, it's not for everybody. And I believe that both parties, just like in any partnership, should vet each other out to assure that it's a good, long-lasting, sustainable relationship.
My guest is Trent Griffin-Braaf. He's the CEO and founder of Tech Valley Shuttle up there in upstate New York, talking about his take on public transportation. When we talk about public versus private, you're a perfect example of this. Whenever I've ridden on public transportation paid for by the public, you find the buses aren't well cleaned. They're not well maintained. It's really bumpy. The people are writing graffiti on it. It doesn't feel very safe at times. But private, it does. It's typically, and it doesn't matter if it's a park, or it's a house, it's a business, it's a whatever. When you have public versus private, the private is typically cleaner and nicer and better because somebody owns it and has a stake in what's going on.
So true. Couldn't agree more.
Do you think that the current model of public transportation can succeed on its own without making changes?
Do I think it can succeed on its own without making changes? Not without making changes. And even if the change that I suggest isn't the right change for how it works, because again, I've never been the transportation authority, the MTAs of the world. And so I don't know what restrictions they have, or I don't even know what data they have that support some of the decisions they make. So I couldn't say that it would be right or wrong based upon not having all of the information. But I do believe that if kept as is, then yeah, we have a problem. And so there should be some sort of change, because the world has changes. The world isn't the same as when public transportation was first introduced, and we've evolved a lot. And so with that evolution, all industries have either had to continue to evolve, or they're like dinosaurs, and we know what happened to them.
Right. Yeah, they're fueling up your vans.
Right, there it is. There it is.
I was talking to somebody at the station about that I was going to be doing this interview with you, and they wanted me to ask you this question. Is it fair for people who don't use public transportation to pay for the people who do?
Is it fair? Is it fair? I don't know if it's fair. I'll say that. There's a lot of things we pay for as taxpayers that we don't all use. And so is it fair? I really couldn't say. What I could say is if you care about the next person, if you care about your community, then, then there should be some pooling that takes place for all of us, right? To make it better. I think there maybe if there was more transparency where we could see exactly where each of our dollars went to, that would help. I think that would help people understand where it's going. I think we should know where our tax dollars are going. There should be full transparency in those things. But is it fair? That's a tough question because there's a lot of things in life that just isn't fair and we have to deal with. But for this particular one, especially when it's an issue bigger than ourselves, I hate to say, no, you shouldn't have to. Is it your responsibility? Maybe not. But at the end of the day, we've all in our lives had highs and we all had lows. And I believe that we've all once needed a leg up or needed some help in a situation. And so if we're helping the next person get their leg up so they can get back on their feet and continue to thrive, then I guess that's more of an internal question to ask, is it fair?
And what parent hasn't told their son or daughter, life's not fair?
There it is. There it is. There it is. There it is.
Do you think public transportation should be free for all riders, or should people, even on the low income of the scale, have some skin in the game?
I think it should be free. That's one thing where I think public transportation should be free when they're doing public transit routes. Now, some of these public transportation companies I'm seeing are starting to venture into some other services where they're doing like employment transportation, school transportation, things of that nature. When they're doing those sorts of things, then maybe it shouldn't be free, or maybe the employer should be paying for it, or the school district should be paying for it. But I would love to see public transportation be free. That would really help individuals out big time. It would reduce the carbon footprint because I think more people would actually take the transportation. And I think it would remove some of the stigmas behind it because a lot of people, after a lot of people who are affluent, they might look down upon taking public transportation. But I think if it was an even playing field, that might change the whole stigma or bias behind public transportation. And you might actually see it. I think you would see a huge increase in usage, a decrease in the carbon footprint that we see. So it could be a win-win all the way around.
And there's no doubt if you've ever been in a nice Sprinter van, it is a lot nicer than just the regular old city bus.
So true. So true. I agree.
And maybe a way to fund companies like yours and others is in grants. And as I understand it, you were up for a grant from Beyonce. Tell me more about how that opportunity came out.
Well, I wasn't one of the recipients of the grant, unfortunately, but I was invited to a luncheon that she's doing in 10 of her larger cities following her Renaissance tour. And so she picks 100 entrepreneurs, I believe it is, for each of these 10 cities. And it's a luncheon where they have special guests. They bring in some resources to help minority business owners. And then they also do these $100,000 in giveaways for grants. I wasn't one of those selected, but I was able to attend. It was a great opportunity to network as well as to get introduced to some resources like Goldman Sachs, American Express, I think it was. Maybe it wasn't American Express, but definitely Goldman Sachs and some other organizations like that that could be pivotal for a small business like ours. So it was an amazing opportunity. I just felt humbled to be one of a select few, and to be able to have that opportunity was a one I'll never forget.
My guest is Trent Griffin-Braaf. He's the CEO and founder of Tech Valley Shuttle in upstate New York, talking about his take on public transportation. The name Tech Valley Shuttle, didn't that come from the name of Eastern New York? I think it's that name of the Eastern New York region, right?
That's correct. I was looking for a name that we could continue to evolve and grow into. I wanted it to kind of reflect who we were as an area, as a demographic, and it just sounded kind of cool, Tech Valley.
Right.
So,
Yeah. But did you have any other names that you considered? Something else that was, just like Trent Shuttle? Come on, you did.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think. Did I have anything like that? I think we might have. I think maybe I was thinking, and I played around with like some generic like hotel shuttle, or because that was real. Oh, so the name legally was Tech Valley Hospitality Shuttle, and the hospitality was for the hotel aspect of it. But I did play around with the hospitality shuttle just in general. But at the same time, I'm happy I had the foresight that I didn't want to pigeonhole myself, even though that was the niche that we wanted to address. I didn't want to pigeonhole myself to just that, just in case there were opportunities to advance and expand it. And so I'm pretty sure Hospitality Shuttle was the runner up. But we then landed on Tech Valley Shuttle instead.
Well, maybe that can be the name of your shuttle service in New York City. So, I mean, really, do you have any plans? You talk about expanding. Do you have plans on expanding past the Tech Valley of New York? Maybe taking your company to New York City?
100%. So we're actively exploring opportunities to explore down to the New York City. We're in talks with. I was reading an email earlier today in response to potentially partnering with the organization in New York to do transportation of the homeless every night. We are exploring opportunities in Syracuse and Buffalo, and so our expansion goal is to be in a new market next year. I'm thinking Buffalo. That's kind of where we're leading. It seems like all roads are leading to Buffalo right now in terms of some of our talks. And then eventually the goal, though, is to either be able to franchise, in which case then we can help other people who are looking to get into business, potentially start a Tech Valley Shuttle right in their own neighborhood, and be a resource to their community. Because we do believe, just like public transportation is something utilized all across the country, we can be something that is utilized all across the country because poverty and transportation go hand in hand in all markets.
But do you think your model would work in the largest of cities, New York, Philadelphia, that sort of thing, Boston, or maybe only in the smaller or medium-sized cities?
I think it's twofold. I think the way we're made up, we could work in larger cities that don't have as robust transportation, as like a New York City, which has one of the best. But for the most part, where our true value is going to lie is in smaller markets where their public transportation system isn't as strong. And so that's really where our true value is going to lie in today's market.
Well, I'm telling you, I wish you all the best. I also was reading a interesting story about you, and I'll put a link in the description of this show for this article that was in the Albany Business Journal. It describes very nicely all that you have done for other people who are looking to rebuild their lives in your community after they've been in jail. All the things that you've done to hire them, and really all your work that you've done for your community. It really is. It's a nice piece that they put together.
Thank you. That's part of the roadmap to success. And so that's the B part of Tech Valley Shuttle. We do transportation and we were combating poverty that way. But the B side is we're people first. And so me being someone who was formerly incarcerated, and identifying that over 80% of my team has been justice impacted in some way, shape, or form, it was important for me to be able to help people be successful in the workplace as well as through entrepreneurship. And so I'm actually I'm finalizing the details of a pilot program within New York State docks at this time, in which case we'll be doing the whole roadmap to success with returning citizens who will be being released within 6 months period. And we're doing real real detailed, thought-provoking lessons around mission statements, around values. This program identifies and helps people so they can become the CEO of their lives, utilizing systems that CEOs have do to build thriving businesses. Because I'm a huge component that systems are what allow things to continue to grow and be better. And I believe through my program, we could help individuals create systems, and that's going to be great for their long-term sustained growth. And so that's we're kicking that off, I believe, in October, and I'm really excited for that. I'm also working with a lot of employers on how to become employers of choice for this population, being that we've been able to be the first place in the capital region, be named best places to work, leaders of diversity, equity, inclusion for the way we hire and our training habits. And so now I'm trying to be a resource to my peers in the business world, as many of them struggle to find employees, and being able to say, hey, I've worked with these individuals. These individuals have gone through my program. They understand what it takes to be successful in the workplace. And for me, it's important to pair them with a workplace that is going to be empowering and allow them to grow and thrive. Because I think all too many times you see individuals just take a job to take a job, say, hey, I just need this job because of parole, or hey, I just need this job because I need a job. Well, that's not the right approach for long-term success. You might just need a job to need a job. And as long as there's a plan on how you continue to grow, that's great. But for individuals who might have committed crimes in the past, if you don't have a long-term goal, and if this is just a job and not a career path, there's a higher likelihood that you'll return to prison. And so I'm trying to help reduce that rate by showing people how to be successful in the space and pairing them with organizations that will allow them to be successful in their space.
Because a driving job turns into a career, especially if you can stick with it. And there are a lot of opportunities to turn a driving job into a career.
I agree. And for me, it's not even just about the driving. The driving is just the small part. We've helped a lot of people, get their commercial driver's license who've come in entry level.
Yep.
But to me, the real thought is, how can we help get you into a C-suite position? How can we help get you into a leadership position? Because now that's a career. That's when you got something that you can continue to climb the ladder. And also, that tells me that you're using that thing on top of your head if you got into roles like that. And when you're using that thing on top of your head, that's when you tapped into your true potential. Yep. And so I'm trying to help individuals utilize that more than anything else, instead of just being about the grunt work. More so, how do we use this thing on top of our head? That's what's going to really help us go further and further in life.
And Trent, the best way for somebody, if they're interested in contacting you, the best way to do that is on your website?
Yes, so they could visit. I try to keep it simple. So my name isn't that simple. It's Trent Griffin-Braaf. That's TrentGriffin-Braaf, as in Frank. And you could literally put that in. That's my website, TrentGriffinBraaf.com. That's my name on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. It's just my name. I keep it simple. But if you sought me out, there's a lot of information about me, and you could definitely contact me that way.
And I'll put a link to your website, techvalleyshuttle.com, in the description of this show, as well as your link to your Twitter feed, which is Tech Valley Shuttle, that I see a couple of posts now and then. So, hey, Trent, thanks so much for your time and your expertise. I really appreciate fun conversation.
This was great. I really appreciate it, and keep driving people crazy.
I have for a lot of years, and my wife will say I've been doing it to her for 25 years. So
I love it.
Trent, thanks again.
Thank you, and you have a great day.
Again, all the contact info for Trent and Tech Valley Shuttle is in the description of this show. I do think this is a model of the future of smaller market, mid market. When I say market, of course I'm talking TV in lingo, but I shouldn't. A small size to medium sized cities, maybe not huge metropolitan. Let's say Philadelphia, Boston, New York City, Los Angeles. I mean, some of the bigger, Houston. Maybe some of the big. Maybe maybe it is. Maybe they can do this kind of micro transit deal. But what I was really thinking about during that discussion were my rides on the air quotes here bus in places that in the Caribbean, like Jamaica and Grand Cayman, where the public bus is really just a 7-passenger van. Really, like 6-7 seats at the most. They would stop at a designated place, and you would get in, toss the driver your fare, usually just a couple bucks, and then you'd be on your way. It was a lot faster. It was not a lot cleaner, but it was more efficient. And I guess you just have to you have to decide what you want most in your public transit. It's funny because I heard that from an economist one time. It says, "Don't tell me what you want. Tell me what you want more." And that's similar in this situation. So do you want it more efficient, faster, cleaner? I mean, what do you want? Do you want all of it, or what do you want more? You know what? You would just talk to the driver about where you would want to stop, and they'd let you out, even if it wasn't like a designated stop, let you out nearby, and then off you go, and off the van goes. There wasn't a lot of room in the van. There were a couple of times where the van would come up and they'd fall, and he'd wait for another one, because another one would be along in a bit to pick you up there. I still think there is a place for larger buses in towns, but maybe more regional routes from small city hub to a larger metro hub in Metro Denver. And I'm sure it's the same way in just about any town. It could be the same in Miami or Tampa, where you have a smaller community here, like in Boulder, where you have a lot of people that want to travel to downtown Denver. So you would have those regional buses going from let's say over 10, 15, 20 miles. Kind of a thing, or even farther, and then you would have these smaller micro vans or sprinter vans, whatever, and you would have that as your rest of the way transit. The smaller vehicles are usually less expensive to operate and maintain, and easier to find a driver to drive a sprinter van than you would be able to find a driver for a large regional bus, because you have to have the special commercial driver's license for the larger bus. It's a lot easier to find somebody who can just drive the sprinter van, and off you go. So I think Trent is on the front edge of some change in transit here. We'll see how long it takes to change completely, because I think the current transit system and model will need to change to survive and to serve people the way they need to be served. Anyway, thanks again for listening. Thanks again for being here. And until next time, I'm Jason Luber, the traffic guy. Be safe, and as always, happy motoring.